Welcome to the story of one of the most infamous figures in American history, Lucky Luciano. Born Salvatore Lucania in November 24, Novara, Italy, Luciano rose to become the father of modern organized crime in the United States. With a career that spanned several decades, Luciano became a master of the criminal underworld, building a vast criminal empire that controlled much of the illegal activity in New York City. In this video, we'll explore the life and legacy of this notorious gangster, from his humble beginnings to his ultimate downfall. So sit back and prepare to learn about the incredible story of Lucky Luciano. But before we get started, please make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified about our amazing upcoming informative videos. Now sit back, relax, and let's go. One of Luciano's first rackets was getting his schoolmates to pay him for protection. If they didn't cough up the money, he was liable to give them a beating himself. Luciano dropped out of school in 1914 and graduated from other offenses. While he worked as a clerk for a hat company for some time, he managed a budding criminal career as well. The teenage Luciano befriended Jewish gang members Meyer Lansky and his associate Benjamin Bugsy Siegel, who would become two of his most important allies. He also became affiliated with Giuseppe Joe the Boss Masurio's criminal operation. Luciano got involved in dealing drugs, which led to his first major run-in with the law in 1916. He was caught selling heroin and served 6 months at a reformatory for the crime. The Big Six of bootlegging. During the 1920s, the prohibition of alcohol created opportunities for criminals to make a lot of money. Luciano became one of the Big Six of bootlegging along with childhood friend Lansky, Siegel, Louis Lepke Buckleter, Jacob Garage Shapiro and Abner Lunges Willman. These unscrupulous characters dominated the illegal liquor trade on the East Coast. Luciano was also an associate of Arnold Rothstein, also known as the Big Bankroll, who had gambling and bootlegging operations. Ring of crime. Rising to power, Luciano took over Masurio's position as the top boss, with Maranzano's approval. He became a leader of one of the city's 5 families, taking his place alongside such infamous figures as Joseph Bonanno, Joseph Prophesy, Tommy Gagliano and Vincent Mangano. Unfortunately for Luciano, Maranzano soon viewed him as a threat and ordered a hit on him. But Luciano was able to strike him first, having some of his men take out Maranzano in his office in September 1931. Luciano and Al Capone. With his rival vanquished, Luciano focused on improving how criminal gangs did business. He sought to create a national organized crime network to quell any conflicts, manage disputes and establish guidelines between the different operations. In addition to the heads of the 5 families, he brought in other crime figures from across the country, including Chicago's Al Capone. This new entity, sometimes known as the Commission, took organized crime to a new level. In the early 1930s, Luciano was enjoying the high life. He lived at New York's luxurious Waldorf Towers, part of the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, under the name Charles Ross. Flush with cash, Luciano looked the part of a wealthy businessman, wearing custom-made suits and riding around in chauffeur-driven cars. But the good times were about to come to an end, as Thomas E. Dewey was appointed to serve as a special prosecutor to look into organized crime in 1935. Marriage. Luciano met Italian ballerina Igia Lissoni in 1948. Despite their 20-year age difference, the couple fell in love, and it was reported the following year that they had married, although others claim that wasn't the case. Regardless, the couple's life in Naples was tumultuous, as Luciano continued his womanizing and at times turned abusive. Lissoni later developed breast cancer and died in 1959. Final years and death. Luciano's luck ran out in 1936. He and 8 members of his vice racket were brought to trial that May. Convicted on extortion and prostitution charges in June, he was sentenced to 30 to 50 years in jail. Luciano was sent to the Clinton Correctional Facility in Dannemora, New York. Nicknamed Siberia by some, the remote prison was near the Canadian border. Luciano tried to appeal his case, but the court upheld his conviction. While in prison, Luciano offered to help in the war effort during World War II by using his criminal connections in Italy to advance the Allies' cause. After the war, Luciano received parole and a deportation order. He went back to Italy briefly and then traveled to Cuba. There he met up with some of his old cohorts in crime, including Lansky and Siegel. In 1947, the Cuban government sent Luciano back to Italy, where he remained under close surveillance. He was not allowed to leave Naples, where he spent the remainder of his days. According to some reports, he still had his hands in narcotics trafficking. Luciano considered sharing the inside details of his life story over the years. In an odd twist of fate, he suffered a fatal heart attack at a Naples airport in January 1962. Luciano had been there to meet with a film and television producer. After hundreds gathered in Naples for the funeral, Luciano's body was returned to the United States. He was buried in the family's vault at St. John's Cemetery in Queens, New York. While he spent much of his life as the notorious Charles Lucky Luciano, he was laid to rest by his parents under his birth name, Salvatore Lucania. The criminal empire that Luciano created continues on to this day. His former underboss, Vito Genovese, eventually took control of Luciano's organization and became the head of what is now referred to as the Genovese crime family. Genovese died in 1969. That concludes our journey through the life of Lucky Luciano. Although his methods were often brutal and illegal, there's no denying the impact he had on the world of organized crime. Luciano's legacy continues to inspire fascination and intrigue, even nearly a century after his rise to power. We hope this video has provided some insights into the man behind the myth and the story of the birth of modern organized crime in the United States. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay curious.